Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. I'm your host, Michael Marchuk.
And I'm Brad Hairston.
And this is our weekly pulse check of AI and automation news. All of the articles that we listed here will be listed in our show notes if you are interested in reviewing them yourself. And Brad, today we have a high water mark here. We're doing 6, and it's actually 5.5 because the last one is more of an update on something we talked about before. But are you ready to go?
I've got an extra large coffee. I'm ready to rock.
Fantastic. Then we're going to get us started here. The first one is from Business Insider, and the title of this article is AI Agents Could Make the Org Chart Obsolete. Microsoft's AI product lead explains what might replace it. And so all that goes through my mind is that we are going to be reporting to some AI overlord at some point in time. So all these please and thank yous that we've been asking to ChatGPT may come in handy. So what's this all about?
That's right. And sooner than you think. Yes. We just hope those agents will be generous and let us take vacation and go out and get some fresh air, because they don't care about fresh air, but you care about fresh air. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. This is an interesting one. It comes from some comments made by Microsoft's AI platform product leader. His name, Asha Sharma. I don't know if it's a male or female, to be honest. But Asha has hinted that, as we embed more AI agents into every one of our workflows, we're going to be orchestrating all activities and getting them to the appropriate worker, whether that's a human worker or an agent worker, instead of the traditional way of, hey, who reports to so-and-so? I need to get something to them to do, or I need to get this answered, or whatever. Technology will solve that for us, and agents will solve that for us. And so if you follow that out, there's going to be less middle management. There will be a flattening of most organizations. And I don't know that this is a crazy idea. I can understand the logic behind it. I think big tech has already been reducing layers even ahead of the rest of the industries. And we see that all the time. There's articles coming out all the time about, Google or OpenAI or Microsoft. They've rolled out all this incredible AI. Well, guess what? The people that develop that AI are being let go. They're being taken out in reductions in force. So I think there's some validity to this, and it'll be an interesting one to watch.
Yes, I agree. I think the idea that the org chart will change, I think there's in my mind, there's another way to look at it too. And that is, while these big tech companies are removing middle management and whatnot, as I see it, it's sort of collapsing from the bottom up and the top down. So we have folks in the middle who are going to be, in theory, managing more of these AI agents as the producers of the work, or at least or overseeing the production of the work and maybe escalating it to them. Whereas the executives then will have AI maybe provide some additional scheduling or oversight orchestration across the work, as the executives have the strategy and the ideas and that whole concept of where the business is going, to apply that to that next layer of orchestration. So I see this sandwich in the middle here where we have people kind of in the middle managing AI workers and then being managed in some way, or at least orchestrated by folks that are, or AI agents that may be providing work into their queues, or driving them in a specific way that would help create efficiency. So very interesting. And we're certainly going to see more about this in the next article. Great segue. Unfortunately, they have this one's called "The U.S. economy actually grew by nearly 1 million fewer jobs than previously thought, and it shows AI is automating away tech jobs," economists say. So, as you just mentioned before,
one theory, right?
That's a theory, exactly. Nobody really knows, but based on what we just saw in the last article and some of the stuff, maybe it's a little closer to the truth than we want to believe. But what's going on with this one?
Well, the U.S. Bureau of Labor is certainly an organization that we go to a lot to look at job numbers, and we trust them quite a bit. It's a little scary that they had to go back and update or reset some of the numbers they had previously reported.
Right. Significant reservations.
This article could all be about just the validity of what they put out there. But they did come back and update their numbers for 2024. And they had previously reported job growth of 168,000 jobs per month in 2024. They've reduced that to 106,000. And furthermore, if you look at what it is right now, it's slowed down even further. It's about 44,000 jobs per month. So if you step back and look at this, and that's what economists are doing, that's the gist of this article, you can make some observations that, information technology or the information industry in general, internet companies, software companies, broadcasting, media companies, they've taken the biggest hit. And it mentions a Stanford University report that's been tracking these numbers over the last 3 years, and they've seen entry-level tech roles go down by 13%. So I don't think we can argue with that trend. And certainly technology disrupts society and disrupts companies. And as innovation takes hold, you see jobs go away. You also see new jobs appear. But the bottom line of this article, the labor market is weaker than we thought. We also know, and we get this from the same organization, we also know that the labor availability is still decreasing. That's on a 25-year trend downward, and the baby boomer segment continues to age out. In fact, there's 20 times more baby boomers leaving the workforce than newer. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up about this.
You need more coffee.
There's 20 times more baby boomers leaving, excuse me, than our, let me pause for a second. Ugh.
I think what you're trying to say is
Sorry, we'll have to edit this out.
We definitely will.
Thank goodness for our good internet, our good podcast editing capabilities.
Yes.
All right, let me go back and I'll start at that last point. Okay, haven't had one of those happen in a long time. The bottom line, Michael, is the labor market is certainly weaker than we thought. We also know from the same organization, we get numbers from them about labor participation rates and things like that. And we know that there's less workers available. That particular stat has been going down for 25 years in a row. There's less newborns happening globally. And then the baby boomer segment is almost gone. In fact, I saw an interesting stat that said there's 20 times more baby boomers every day that are leaving the workforce than new workers that are entering it from college and elsewhere. So, it's a little disturbing that the numbers are a lot lower, and the fact that they're just finding that out and updating that. But I think it is a trend that we'll continue to watch.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be a need. And you talk about entry-level tech jobs. There's always going to be a need for that guy to go fix your toner in your printer, right? So I think those jobs are probably safe at the moment, but we'll move on to our next one, which is look, again, same kind of concept here. Another Fortune article. AI experts say that it's not a question that AI will take over all jobs, but people will have 80 hours a week of free time. All right, so we've heard this before where there's this utopian nirvana where we will have robots, both physical and electronic, doing everything for us. AI agents making things happen on our behalf while the physical robots mow our lawns, fold our laundry, walk the dog, and everything else. Where do you see this going?
I looked at this article a little differently. I mean, certainly it would be great to have 80 hours a week of free time that we could take advantage of. But I'm looking at this as this guy is the new Dr. Doom. I mean, his name's Dr. Roman Yampolsky from the University of Louisville. And he's predicting that 99% of work will be replaced by AI and humanoid robots just in the next 5 years. This is the boldest prediction that I think we've heard to date. We've heard many people project that 30, 40, 50% of the work we do today will be automated or transformed or replaced by agents. This is pretty dramatic. I'd like to dig deeper into this guy's perspective and understand exactly why he thinks this is the case. I mean, certainly innovation is moving at a pace we've never seen before, but he kind of completely discounts the need or the relevance of the human skills and the humanity itself that we bring to society and to jobs and to all professions. And I'm not just talking about doctors and teachers and those that really need empathy or need more compassion. I think many of our human skills are needed in all jobs. And I'm not just, you move away from compassion and empathy, just the creativity and the ability to innovate the way that we do as humans. I know that AI can create new things, and we see that every day in art and video and what have you. But it's a little sad to think that the humanity in us is going to be diminished so much that we're just going to let robots do everything, and then we're going to go and try to figure out, what do we do 80 hours a week? Do we do picnics, or do we play pickleball, 8 hours a day or whatever? I mean, I think it's a little far-fetched. He does make the point that as we automate more and more and more, you can't really retrain people at that pace. So we can't even upskill fast enough to be able to maintain the relevance of human workers in our companies and what have you. So I understand his premise. I just don't buy it. I also think, this, as he talks about, it gets us into this whole thing about universal basic income. I am not a believer in that. Even if I thought that was something we needed to do, I don't see how that has a snowball's chance in hell of working in any society around the world. But it is something that comes up, and Elon Musk loves to bring it up too. But yeah, I think there's a place for humans, and I don't think we have to start planning out what we're going to do with 80 to 100 hours of free time every week.
No, I think this is, in my mind, this is clickbait type of stuff, because quite honestly, there's a purpose that people have in working. So even if somehow all jobs, 100% of jobs were completely done by either humanoid robots or electronic robots, agents, the reality is that people would still find something to do that looks a whole lot like work, and would find a way to build businesses off of that, even if they're automated, but they would be the ones thinking about and doing those things. So it's extremely unlikely that work in itself would ever go away. And I think this is a very, very, when I say misguided, it's a very narrow viewpoint from somebody who I believe is misguided on the broader sense of what work is. Just because you can do it doesn't mean it would happen. For all kinds of other reasons. There's people who, again, this is a very skewed viewpoint in my personal opinion. Yeah. All right, so let's go to the Wall Street Journal and talk about an article that was just published. OpenAI executives rattled by campaigns to derail the for-profit restructuring. Now, they're planning, they had started off as a nonprofit, and they have the way their structure is, and I'm sure you're going to go through this. It's part of it's a nonprofit, part of it's a for-profit, and the board that oversees all of this has very specific ideas in mind. Can you walk us through it?
Yeah, this has got to be the biggest thorn in the side of Sam Altman and the for-profit component of OpenAI, because what's going on essentially is politicians are asking the state's attorney general in California to ensure that OpenAI doesn't violate the state's charitable trust law. So the way that OpenAI started as a not-for-profit, there are still a lot of, there's still a lineage there that they can't separate from without getting the politicians and others, to approve it and support it. And right now they're making it very difficult. And of course you've got, Meta and Elon Musk, who are also coaching the state legislators to not, pave the way for this, because they would like to see it, continue to have a heavy not-for-profit tone to it. I think it helps them from a competitive standpoint. All of this is having it's ruffling the feathers of OpenAI, and it's been rumored that they may even pack up and head out. They might head to another state, which would be a huge development. I'm not sure they could pull that off all too quickly, although we've seen Elon start to move huge portions of his enterprise elsewhere, including Texas, my home state. But the other thing it mentions, which is kind of interesting, is the recent news headlines about some suicides that have happened from people on ChatGPT, that they were getting a lot of coaching and advice from ChatGPT over a prolonged time, and then they ended up committing suicide. And that's one data point that's coming up that is being used to say that, look, as OpenAI becomes more profit-centered, this is the outcome. We've lost this is not for the better good of humanity. In fact, it's creating some chaos in society that we don't need, in the form of lending advice to people that leads to suicide. So that's coming into it, and I think I don't see this this battle going away anytime soon. I'm sure if OpenAI went back in the past and they could redo things, they would rethink the way that they started the company. And but then again, it helped it launch quickly, and it gave us ChatGPT, which has been pretty revolutionary in and of itself. So maybe a lot of things would be different if they started out as a for-profit.
So this is another question, and this is me being slightly snarky. If you continue to lose billions of dollars every year, isn't that by definition not profit? So, I mean, I'm just saying.
Really good point. A really good point.
Anyway, we'll move on to the next one here. This is an article from Popular Mechanics. And I know we generally don't have articles from Popular Mechanics on here, but this one had a very good spin to it. And the title of this article is "The Internet Will Be More Dead Than Alive Within 3 Years, Trend Shows." Now, this article is describing and going through what has become known as the dead internet theory. And so is this one of those questions of the reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated, or what's going on with this? Tell us more.
This is it's another gloom and doom kind of article, but this one I buy into completely. It's the idea that we're headed to a point very, very soon when the amount of AI and bot-generated content on the internet will have exceeded what is produced by humans. And it doesn't take a lot to get, to buy into that, especially if you just look at what's happening with spam and with, I get text every single day that come in and say, "Hey, I found your number in my contacts, but I don't remember who you are. Give me your name." Stuff like that. That's just, it's all bot generated, and the phone calls, the spam, the marketing calls.
Right.
I mean, it's really staggering. And the article mentions a couple of research reports that kind of point to this. A 2024 bad bot report estimated that nearly half of all the traffic on the internet, was generated by bots. This is in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Another report found that there were more than 1,000 news sites on the internet that are run entirely by bots.
Mm-hmm.
That is really concerning. But I'm not shocked. In the generative AI era, I mean, you can do some pretty crazy things. So, I find this, it's a concerning but does it change our lives? Does it make our life work? I guess we'll spend less time on the internet, and that's a positive thing. But the internet is still so vital to all businesses and getting the word out and communicating with prospects and so forth. I just think maybe it will become less important to people and companies as they're doing their research or they're doing their shopping or what have you, as they learn that, hey, most of the content out there has been created by bots, and we know that Gen AI can be a little too creative in some of the stuff that it generates. So it may just lower the overall trust in the internet, although it's already pretty low, but it could be even lower.
I'm going to link this back to one of the articles we just covered. And if 99% of jobs go away and the internet becomes a cesspool of just AI-generated content, does that mean we're going to be watching YouTube videos and Instagram influencers who don't actually exist with our 80 hours of free time? So,
well, even those will be generated. Yeah, even those are being generated by AI or by bots or what have you. In fact, Michael, I went and found a podcast one time that I started listening to, and it was advertised as I think it was called the Bill Gates podcast. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know Bill Gates, did that kind of thing. I went and had his picture on it and everything. I went and listened to the first episode, and Bill had nothing to do with it at all. And it was some random, host that was talking about a certain topic. The whole thing was AI generated. The podcast, the content, the marketing, probably even getting it on Apple Podcast was AI generated. So this is the world we live in. I think we have to maybe be even more skeptical or cautious in how we approach any kind of information these days, because large language models or even small language models have gotten so good at creating information that we just take as the gospel truth right from the beginning, and only to find out that we've been duped over and over and over again. So, I buy into this, and it is troubling.
It is, but though there's no doubt that all that AI generated content there is generating real, actual revenues. So I don't see that going away until there's some way to track, monitor, and demonetize that type of content, so that reduces the amount of generated content. But then again, who knows? Maybe they won't, because it's continuing to generate eyeballs, which continue to generate revenue for these platforms. So, speaking of revenue being generated and having to go away, this is an update we're doing on an article that we've covered, or at least a story we've covered a couple different times in the past. But it bears repeating in this case because of the outcome. So this is from Reuters. The article title is Anthropic Agrees to Pay $1.5 billion to Settle Author Class Action Suit. So, Brad, we've talked about this in the past, but get us caught up to speed and tell us more about what this is implying.
Yeah, this is amazing. This story first hit the scene months ago when these 3 or 4 authors sued Anthropic for using their books in training their model without permission. And at the time, the judge, it was one of the first cases where a judge was looking at whether that was fair use of that material. And we had kind of a fair use precedent set in the through the legal scene, and the judge in this case said, yeah, I think it was fair use. So Anthropic seemed to be getting away, pretty cleanly. But then the judge said, but let's do a trial and let's bring in a broader set of people to hear this and dig into it. Well, that turned the tables, and next thing you know, Anthropic has been told that they need to pay a fine. What we didn't know until this article broke just the other day is that it wasn't just these 4 or 5 authors. They were actually representing a class action settlement that involved 500,000 downloaded books. So when the judge came forward and said to Anthropic, you need to pay a fine of $3,000 per book that you downloaded and used without permission, that's $1.5 billion. I mean, that is a massive fine, which blew me away when I read that. And I went back to do a little research on Anthropic to see, how does this relate to their revenue, their size? Well, last year they're privately held, so all we can do is speculate as to exactly what their numbers look like. But most companies think that their revenue last year, annual revenue, was around $1 billion. Now that has doubled, at least, maybe tripled this year. So they've been growing like most companies in their space. They've been growing really rapidly. So let's say they're $3 billion in annual revenue. This is 50% of that they're going to have to pay in a fine. And I'm it's not just a rounding error. If they were Microsoft or a company like that, they'd brush it off and move on. But for Anthropic, it's got to be a huge punch in the gut. And more importantly, I think it's a punch in the gut to the industry. And there are still other cases that are ongoing that are similar. There's one with Meta, and I think some of the others are maybe OpenAI has some that are still pending. So this is one that's going to, I think, get incredible attention and really change the way that these companies are using and gathering information from the internet and other places to train their models. And I think they're going to have to be much more careful going forward, because no one can survive fines like this on a reoccurring basis.
Right. So I want to be clear too, because in case people are thinking that that the judge has fined them $1.5 billion for using the content because it was initially thought it was fair use, the judge ruling is still standing. It was fair use. The reason they're having this particular fine is because of the 7 million pirated books that they stored as part of the way they trained their model. So this had nothing to do with accessing the information and using it in, if they were able to get it in some legal way, but they resorted to an illegal way to not only access the information, but create a massive 7 million volume library of pirated books. And that is what they are being fined for. So this is, in my mind, a piracy case, not necessarily a fair use case. So not sure how all the other organizations are getting access to the volumes of information that they're going after, but hopefully it's not through piracy, which, as we've seen, is very, very costly. So, well, that covers it for this week in our roundup of our news articles here. Every week we have a wonderful guest that we have join us to provide some very interesting insights about the industry and where they think it's going. And you need to listen to that one too. So for this week, we're done with our automation and AI news, and we'll see you next week on the podcast. Thanks.